Welcome back to SnowRunner, y'all, and in this video, we're going to be talking about Expeditions, a MudRunner game. Now, before we get into the specifics of that, we need to run through some housekeeping and talk about a couple of other things, and then we're going to dive right into that topic. First of all, for those of you playing SnowRunner, the map that I'm using in this video is available on all consoles, and it is called Remo's Tough Truck Map. However, the truck that I am using is YaBuddy's Ram 3500, and it is only available on PC, but I will leave a link to YaBuddy's Discord server where you can find more information about it and all of YaBuddy's other trucks in the description box down below, along with all of the other useful links that are down there. So recently, a trademark application was filed by Saber Interactive, the developers of SnowRunner, for a game called, or rather a property called Expeditions, a MudRunner Game. Now, this naming process, or this naming format, is the exact same naming format that we have known all throughout pretty much the entirety of the series ever since MudRunner, which was MudRunner, a Spin Tires game, and then SnowRunner, a MudRunner game, and then now it looks like Expeditions, a MudRunner game as well. Now, what's interesting about this is that they've moved away from the sort of mud and snow and terrain-based naming format, and they've moved into a more general format, because expeditions can mean any number of things. Now, there was also a recent hinting from one of the developers in the official SnowRunner Discord that we may or may not, nothing is confirmed by this, but we may or may not see some kind of announcement related to this fairly soon. Now, there was no official timeline given, but I think that in regards to what we've seen, plus considering the fact that we're coming up on the holiday season, I think that there might be a chance, slim chance, but a chance that we might see, I don't know, maybe a little bit more news trickle out before the end of the year, but we'll have to wait and see on that. That is no confirmation of anything whatsoever. Please do not take that out of context, but that is, you know, something that I am kind of hoping for, because what I think is probably going to happen is the final sort of run of SnowRunner DLC will probably finish itself out, and then we'll probably have a tiny little bit of sort of quiet time, and then after that quiet time is over and the SnowRunner DLC cycle has completely finished out, then we will probably see something about the next game. Now, while there's been a lot of speculation around what the next game could potentially be called, I actually think Expeditions is a good name because, now granted, this could just be a working name and not necessarily a final name, you know, that they just wanted to make sure that they trademarked just in case. I don't know, but it seems like, you know, for them trademarking a whole title like that, it might actually be something that they stick with and use, and so I hope that it is, because I think it's, again, a really good name, because it's one of those things where once you go through all of these different terrain-based names, like we all joked about it in all of the years of SnowRunner being out, like, haha, what's the next game going to be called? Is it going to be SandRunner? Are we going to go to space and it's going to be MoonRunner? Are they going to improve the pavement physics and then make it, I don't know, Roadrunner? I mean, that would essentially be what a lot of us were kind of jokingly hoping for, but I think that Expeditions is actually a really good name because it doesn't lock them down to any specific type of environments or gameplay or sort of preconceived expectations of what the game could be, because the name SnowRunner actually kind of still is a bit contentious for some people in the community and some players of the game, because I still get comments on my SnowRunner videos to this day that say things like, well, why would you call it SnowRunner when there's way more maps that don't feature snow than maps that do feature snow? It's a stupid name. And while I don't think it's a stupid name by any means, I have seen a lot of comments where people have said, oh, I don't like that, that's a dumb name, that's a stupid name, whatever. But I think that naming it something like Expeditions really gives you a much more broad range from which to work from, and then you don't have to deal with sort of the nitpicky nature of, you know, maybe some people in the community saying things like, wow, this doesn't fit the approach that the name suggests it does, which means it's a letdown, which, again, I don't think a game should be entirely bound to what it can do just purely based on its name, as long as there are aspects of the gameplay that kind of correlate to the name. I don't think it should be locked to just snow, or like, you know, I don't think if the name is SnowRunner, then I don't have a preconceived notion that then it must be at least 50% snow-based gameplay. But at the same time, I'm glad they're going more open with the naming approach. And now, let's talk about some things, and I want y'all to be very vocal in the comments if you have anything that you really want to add to this conversation, because I think it's really important, especially because, you know, we don't know what this game is going to be yet, but let's go over some of the things that I am so deeply hoping and so, like, tightly crossing my fingers and hoping that they either update, change, or fix. One, I really hope that they widen the visual range and gameplay and terrain range more than it being just a reskinned SnowRunner. Because, you know, they could do that. They could slap a fresh coat of paint on SnowRunner and be like, here you go, new game. And I feel like, especially for somebody like myself and anybody else that's been with this series for a really long time, we're gonna really be, like, easily be able to tell if they do that. Like, you know what I mean? We're gonna be easily able to tell if we boot up the game and we play it for a little bit and we're like, hang on, this is SnowRunner with a fresh coat of paint. But I really hope that they don't do that. Now, obviously, I want the core dynamics of the game to remain because this game has some amazing core dynamics. But there are some other things that desperately need to be changed. One, the way vehicles interact with rocks. The rocks are almost all slick, and a lot of them you just fall right through, and as a matter of fact, well, I say you fall right through them. They're not necessarily fall through them, but you clip through them, and you'll actually be able to see that a little bit later on in this particular section, once I get this lumbering beast of a truck up and over this obstacle. But don't worry about that, that's fine, that's secondary to what we're talking about. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about with that is we need to get, especially in the stock vehicles, we need to get more fluid motion in the suspension. This was a huge thing back in MudRunner, and suspensions feel so stiff and static in SnowRunner compared to the way they felt in MudRunner. Now, next, moving on. More transparency between the team and the community is absolutely necessary, and I know that some people will argue with me on this. Some people will say, oh, they were plenty transparent, and other people will say they weren't transparent at all. I kind of feel like I fall somewhere in the middle where I'm like, well, they were transparent on some things, but they were also not transparent on other things, and there were a lot of people that were very upset at the way that they integrated DLC. And to me, I'm like, okay, if you're gonna integrate DLC, that's fine, but tell us ahead of time which DLC is going to be, you know, which DLC is going to be paid, which DLC is going to be free, and give us a clear roadmap of what that's going to look like, because the roadmap of what was paid and what was free kind of changed here and there over time, especially ever since, like, the original launch up until the current state of the game. The next thing is please, more multiplayer testing, because every time, and it depends on the console that you're on, obviously, but in SnowRunner, with some of these big updates that they pushed out, some consoles, Xbox in particular, lost the ability to play multiplayer with friends for multiple months on end, and the response from the dev team was, we'll get to it. And I'm like, that is absolutely unacceptable. I'm sorry if you think that that's, you know, ripping into the developers too much, but I'm not gonna hold back on that, because the Xbox community is a large part of this community, and they shouldn't be hung out to dry in terms of being able to play multiplayer with friends, because that's 3/4 of the reason a lot of people buy this game. And of course, I'm also hoping that the console modding process is integrated a little bit more seamlessly. Whereas last time, there was this really rocky progression with it, especially in the beginning, where they originally didn't have a mod limit, and then they instituted one later, but they kept changing it, and a lot of people felt that it was too harsh. And again, I will always go back to what I think is the best option with this, that being, if you enable more mods, then your console should technically be able to run. You should get an error message, and it should tell you, hey, you might crash your game if you continue, but it is your fault if you do. Do you wish to proceed, yes or no? And I feel like that would be a good enough disclaimer. However, I understand that the devs may not be comfortable with a system like that after all of the, after all of the report bombing that they received back when they originally rolled out console mods with no RAM limit. And if you don't know about that, if you don't know what happened, essentially the short version is they rolled out console mods, they didn't have a RAM limit, people installed way too many mods, crashed their consoles, or crashed their game, and then literally you know, filed complaint reports against SnowRunner in mass, and the game almost got removed from, like, the Xbox and PlayStation store because so many people were filing, essentially bogus complaint reports because they turned too many mods on at once and their console couldn't handle it. So they need to either have, you know, a limit, maybe that's a necessary evil, I don't know, but at the very least, I think it would be nice to just have an error message. That way, it would kind of eliminate a lot of the people's complaints, but it would also protect the developers a little bit, just in case someone turned on way too many mods and decided they just wanted to run with it. But finally, here at the end of the video, let me know in the comment section down below what you think of the new potential name, which is Expeditions. Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Do you think it's exciting? Do you think it's not exciting? Are you done with the series entirely after some of the crazy things that happened with SnowRunner and you know, are not interested in the next game? Are you cautiously optimistic? Are you, you know, not interested in buying the next game in the series? Are you interested? I'm really excited to hear all of your thoughts and opinions, and with all of that being said and done, let me know your thoughts and opinions, and I will see y'all next time. Talk to y'all later.